World Trade Center. On September 11th, he saved 2,700 lives before giving his own. Today, we are immensely grateful to be joined by Rick's son, Trevor. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. To Trevor and every 9/11 family, we pledge to never, ever forget the towering spirit of strength that we see in this city lives within the heart of every American warrior. From the snow of Valley Forge to the jungles of Vietnam, from the forests of Bellewood to the beaches of Normandy, from the mountains of Afghanistan to the deserts of Iraq, that spirit has helped our fighters defeat tyrants, conquer fascism, vanquish communism, and face down terrorism. Just a few weeks ago, American Special Forces raided the ISIS compound and brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Thanks to American warriors, al-Baghdadi is dead. His second in charge is dead. We have our eyes on number 3. His reign of terror is over, and our enemies are running very, very scared. Thank you. Thank you. Those who threaten our people don't stand a chance against the righteous might of the American military. In a few weeks, we will mark the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge, our nation's bloodiest battle of World War II. More than 47,000 Americans were wounded, and 19,000 gave their last breath for their country. We are proudly joined today by a veteran of the Battle of the Bulge, a native New Yorker who is 94 years old and still going very, very strong, Corporal Jack Foy. You look good, Jack. You look good. Jack enlisted in the Army right out of high school. He fought through brutal months of the campaign in northern France. On Christmas Eve, after marching nearly 100 miles in the snow in sub-zero temperatures, he arrived outside the town of Bastogne in Belgium. For 2 weeks, Jack fought under ceaseless artillery fire and helped push the enemy back from a critical road. At one point, a mine blew up, and it destroyed his vehicle, badly hurting many. He was wounded 3 times, but he kept on fighting. After the Allied victory at the Battle of the Bulge, Jack fought for the remaining 9 months of the war, across the Siegfried Line, up the Mosel River, through the Rhineland, and all the way across Germany until he reached the gates of Ohrdruf concentration camp, the first Nazi camp to be liberated. That was #1. That was a big, big event. As Jack has said about the Battle of the Bulge, when the chips were down and the situation was desperate, the American soldiers stood up to be counted. For a brief moment in history, these men held our nation's destiny in their hands. We did not fail. Thank you very much, Jack. And Corporal Foy, we will forever be proud of what you and your fellow soldiers achieved for all of humanity. Also here with us today is Lauren Matthews, the granddaughter of a Battle of the Bulge veteran who has since passed away. His name was Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds. Like so many of our veterans, Roddy never talked about the war. Lauren never knew her grandfather's story until she embarked upon a school project about 10 years ago. Roddy was in the 422nd Regiment, which was overwhelmed when the Nazis launched their surprise assault. He and his men fought for 3 treacherous days before being taken as prisoners of war. After they arrived at a prison camp, the German commander sent an order over the loudspeaker. The Jewish American soldiers were all told to step out of line during roll call the next day. Knowing the terrible fate that would come to his Jewish comrades, Roddy immediately said, "We're not doing that." He sent orders to have every American step out of line with their Jewish brothers in arms. The next morning, 1,292 Americans stepped forward. The German commander stormed over to Roddy and said, "They cannot all be Jews." Roddy stared right back. He said, "We are all Jews here." At that point, the German put a gun to Roddy's head and demanded, "You will order the Jews."
Our only buffer in that area. Look at a map, folks. Yeah. Russian aggression. Let me just ask you, though, I want to hear, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but just also speak as a former chief of staff in that building at the Pentagon. Is this previously unfathomable to you?
Yeah, I was thinking, what would Laura Cooper, our Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, have been thinking as she's sitting in meetings in which is told to her that the big program she's working on to provide security assistance to the Ukrainians to defend themselves against a fight from Russia, that's being delayed by the president. She's thinking, WTF, there is some secret program here that's undermining American foreign policy, what the Congress has authorized. And she's got to wonder exactly what's going on. Now, it's clear from her testimony that was just released in the last 30 minutes, she doesn't have full visibility. She's sort of peering up against the glass thinking, there's something going on here. I'm not being told the whole story. I know it has something to do with election interference, but there is something rotten in Denmark, and I'm not cool with it.
Peter, let me give you the last word. And before we lose you, this is part of the world you know a lot about. I mean, have you ever read so many transcripts of so many U.S. government officials being at their wits' end, being sort of flabbergasted, perplexed, as Harry said, some of them feeling ire building inside, that U.S. policy was clearly moving in a pro-Putin direction and really threatening the security of an ally like Ukraine? Have you seen any fact pattern like this ever?
In a pro-Putin way or a pro-Russian way, no. I mean, look, there are times, of course, in previous administrations where the career folks, the career diplomats and career government employees didn't particularly, cotton to the administration's pattern, or the administration's policy. I mean, we saw that during the Iraq War. We saw that at times under Clinton, for instance, when people quit over welfare reform. I mean, there are times when the professional staff is sort of at odds to some extent with the political leaders, but they defer to political leaders because the political leaders are elected. What you haven't seen, I think, at least in any time that I can remember going back covering the White House starting in 1996, is a time when career diplomats and career employees were worried that the President of the United States was distorting foreign policy to suit his own personal political interests. That's what's different here. What you hear some of the President's defenders say is, hey, we do quid pro quos with American aid all the time. That's true. Of course we do. We do that to achieve policy ends. We don't do it traditionally, at least, not that I can remember anyway, to tilt policy in the favor of where the president thinks his domestic political interests lie. And as you point out, to do it in the direction that President Putin would want us to do it, it makes it all the more unusual.
Peter Baker, Harry Litman, thank you both. We'll be calling on you early and often this week. We're going to sneak in a break and come right back, head up to Capitol Hill for more on this breaking testimony, this breaking transcript we just got our hands on. Stay with us.
Hey there, people eligible for Medicare. Give me 2 minutes, and I'll tell you some important things to know about Medicare. First, it doesn't pay for everything. Say this pizza is your Part B medical expenses. This much, about 80%, Medicare will pay for. What's left, this slice here, well, that's on you. And that's where an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan, insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company, comes in. This type of plan helps pay some of what Medicare doesn't, and these are the only plans to carry the AARP endorsement. That's because they meet their high standards of quality and service. Want to learn more? It's easy. Call United Healthcare Insurance Company now and ask for this free decision guide. Inside, you'll find the range of AARP Medicare supplement plans and their rates. Apply anytime, too. Oh, speaking of time, about a little over halfway, and there's more to tell. Like how with this type of plan, you'll have the freedom to choose any another state visiting the grandkids, stay a while. Enjoy. And know that you'll still be able to see any doctor who accepts Medicare patients. So call United Healthcare today. They are committed to being there for you. Tick, tick, tick. Time for a wrap-up. A Medicare supplement plan helps pay some of what Medicare doesn't. You know, the pizza slice. It allows you to choose any doctor who accepts Medicare patients. And these are the only plans of their kind endorsed by AARP. Phew. Call United Healthcare today and ask for this free decision guide.
I was on the fence about changing from a manual to an electric toothbrush, but my hygienist said going electric could lead to way cleaner teeth. She said get the one inspired by distance, with the round brush head.
Go pro with Oral-B. Oral-B's gentle rounded brush head removes more plaque along the gum line for cleaner teeth and healthier gums. And unlike Sonicare, Oral-B is the first electric toothbrush brand accepted by the ADA for its effectiveness and safety.
What an amazing clean. I'll only use an Oral-B.
Oral-B. Brush like a pro.
Three. About to capture proof of the Africa woodpecker. What? Oh, no.
Battery power runs out. Lifetime retirement income from TIAA doesn't. Guaranteed monthly income for life.
We are back with the breaking news, testimony from another witness in the impeachment investigation into Donald J. Trump. MSNBC's Garrett Haake has been reading in for us while we've been talking and reading at the same time. Garrett, what are your takeaways?
Well, Cooper really expands the net here of people who knew what was going on and were totally confused by it. I mean, she describes a series of meetings at the Pentagon and elsewhere where at first it's conveyed just that the chief of staff doesn't want this money to go out, and that's unusual. And then there's this back-channeling going on of trying to figure out what's going on here. Why isn't this money moving? Did Ukraine meet these various standards that they need to have met to have this money released? And yes, and yes, and yes. And then there's this question of, okay, well, if this is coming from the president, how can the president legally do this? There's an interesting exchange in here where the questioner, and I think it's probably one of the attorneys for the committee, is trying to pin Cooper down on this question of, did you ask whether or not, this was legal or not? Could this be done lawfully? Is it a violation of the law? She says, I don't remember the exact phrase, but yes, that's what we're talking about. Is it proper? Is it legal for this money to be withheld? This is somebody who's been working on this from a Defense Department perspective for quite a long time. And then you get into conversations that she has later on with Kurt Volker, who's a fascinating character in this whole drama, even separately from this, who says, I think I might have a way to release this aid, which everyone else in the whole of government wants. But it's going to involve this statement from the Ukrainians. And in the conversation with Cooper, she comes away thinking it's a conversation just about election interference, specifically backward-looking election interference. So they might come out with some kind of statement disavowing anything that might have happened in 2016. But she becomes increasingly aware throughout the course of the timeline laid out in this deposition that this money, which the whole rest of the U.S. government wants to see being released, is held up for reasons that don't appear to her to be legal or at least above board. And then there's Volker, who's this go-between here, who might have a solution to get that money released just in the nick of time. It's a fascinating slice of one bureaucrat's view of this whole scheme as it's going on.
Garrett, stay up with us for the rest of our conversation, but let me bring into our conversation politics reporter for Daily Beast, Betsy Widders-Swan. I mean, the problem with that, I'm sure Kurt Volker was trying to find a way to get the aid released, but it was contingent on investigating the Bidens and Burisma and reinvestigating something that the American intelligence agencies had already said was a conspiracy theory that had been communicated to Donald Trump. Let me read that excerpt that Garrett was right to point out. So this is on the topic of Ambassador Kurt Volker, who has resigned. He was the first official to resign. He was the first witness to go up and testify as part of the impeachment inquiry on the topic of whether he was engaged in an effort to see if there was a statement that the government of Ukraine could make in order to lift President Trump's hold. So there is no debate anymore about whether it was President Trump's hold on the military aid. This has moved so far. Laura Cooper says, with respect to I forgot how you described it. The questioner says, a non-traditional form of diplomacy. She responds, non-traditional form of diplomacy. My personal interaction interaction was only with Ambassador Kurt Volker. So on about August 20th, he visited me, and this is not unusual because he was